Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano. It's the 5th of October 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So a simple tweet from Tim Byko today, but one that I think holds a lot of meaning behind it. He said, "Kinda wild, Ethereum is now just running proof of stake in the background like it's no biggie." And I mean, as I said, there's a lot to unpack when you look at this tweet. It's a simple tweet, but there's a lot in the background here, and it is wild that I mentioned this after the merge, that basically the merge happened, it went through so smoothly that no one really talks about it anymore, right? Ethereum is just running on proof of stake. We obviously have a lot of stuff happening in the background with regards to proof of stake, and I'm seeing Rocket Pool actually grow a lot recently, which is really, really cool. And yeah, there's plenty of stuff happening around that. But the actual transition itself, I mean, there's no reason for us to talk about it anymore since it's done. But it's just funny how such a big thing, something that was talked about so often, and I talked about it almost every day on my show leading up to it. It just happened, went smoothly, and now we're just running Ethereum on proof of stake. Just awesome. And I don't know if it would have been talked about more if it was a bull market. I don't really think that it would have mattered that much. Maybe people would have been like, oh, look, the reduction in supply led to ETH pumping, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, immediately pumping, but in reality, it probably was just bull market things. It's always hard to know what correlates with what and everything. I mean, if it was that easy, everyone would be able to tell where the price was going to go, right? But yeah, I just thought it was something simple that Tim put out today that has a lot behind it. And I've been doing a bit of reflecting over the last couple days, actually, about the merge and proof of stake and everything surrounding it, because there's a thread actually from Bert Miller from Flashbots, and I'm going to read out, but I've been thinking about it in the context of MEV, in the context of obviously these MEV boost relays and things like that, and how I can personally help with kind of strengthening the network from that point of view. So that got me just thinking a lot about the fact that Ethereum's now on proof of stake and going through all the motions there. So yeah, just a great little tweet from Tim today that I wanted to quickly highlight on the refuel. And speaking of proof of stake and the Beacon chain, Michael Sproul from the Sigma Prime team here, who build the Lighthouse consensus layer client, kind of put out a tweet where he said, "Update on the Beacon Chain archive node efforts. Here's a formerly 3 terabyte plus Lighthouse archive node in 273 gigabytes." So the performance improvements that are coming to clients are immense. I mean, as I mentioned, I believe on the refuel previously, all the focus on the clients was obviously getting the merge done. But now that that's done, and there are other upgrades coming, but those are still obviously in flight. We don't know exactly which ones are going to go into the network and things like that. Team members of these client teams can work on optimizations, which is obviously what we want to see for a number of different reasons. One of the big reasons actually is that the more optimizations there are, the potentially more profitable a client will be over another client. So that's obviously an incentive, but also things like this, where we're getting a Lighthouse archive node down from 3 terabytes or over 3 terabytes to just 273 gigabytes, which isn't very much at all. So just great to see this. Great to see that optimizations have still continued to be worked on and are kind of ramping up here. And Michael reckons that we can shave another 50 gigabyte off the block storage using another optimization that he tweeted about a few weeks ago. So the total should be less than 250 gigabytes for at least a few more months. So very cool effort. Great job here to Michael and whoever else worked on this. Love to see it. All right, so John Becker here from Transpose Data put out a tweet today saying Ethereum data is about to be easier to access than ever. And there's a screenshot here of basically a Transpose SQL playground of accessing Ethereum data. And I've highlighted a bunch of these services before on the refuel. I think they're extremely important for a number of reasons. And I think the best thing about this is that this actually fits into I don't know if the thesis is the right word, but it fits into something that I spoke about yesterday about how there's going to be third-party services that store certain data. And data in the sense of state and things like call data in place of them actually being stored on the Ethereum Layer 1 chain. And the example I used yesterday was proto-dank sharding, how that call data is only going to persist for 1 month on the Ethereum Layer 1 chain. And then after that, it expires. And then, if you haven't downloaded it yourself, then if no one's downloaded it, the data is technically lost, but the thing is that you don't need that data for to verify that it was correct, to verify the state of of the layer twos. What you need it for is things like accounting, things like querying balances at a certain period of time. And that's something that some of you may not know, is that the main difference between an archive node and a full node on Ethereum is that an archive node will give you everything that ever happened on the chain, every state difference. So what I mean by that is, say you want to look up the balance of an account at block such and such, right? Some block 1 year ago or something, and you want to look at what their balance was, what their ETH balance was, what their token balances were, all that sorts of stuff, right? To do that, you would need an archive node, right? You can't do that with a full node. But the thing is that an archive node and a full node, they'll give you the same security guarantees. It's just that a full node is obviously much easier to run. It's much smaller in size. But the only reason that you would need the data from the archive node is for historical accounting purposes, right? And obviously that is a service that is needed by a lot of people, probably most people, but we have third parties that offer that. Like, I don't query my own archive node to get that information. I go to Etherscan, right? I go to other block explorers. Now, is there centralization concerns with that? I mean, sure. But the thing is, it's not like it's centralization concerns in the sense of Ethereum being centralized. It's more centralization concerns around the availability of that data. And obviously, as I said, that data is not unneeded, but it is not needed for the chain, for you to run a full node in order to make sure that the chain is secure, to audit the chain to make sure everything's as it should be, right? But as I said, like Transpose data here is just one, or it's called Transpose, is just one tool in the tool belt. There's plenty of others out there that are going to be doing this sorts of stuff, that are going to be storing this, because as I said, there is a business opportunity here for these companies. They can offer this and for maybe a subscription fee or maybe a one-off fee or anything like that. And there's also going to be people who just store all this stuff for free and offer it to people for free as well. So we're going to have a spectrum there of different solutions, but obviously that's better than just leaving everything on Ethereum layer 1 and making, and the cost basically gets borne by the network. So it's not free. Like, every time you do something on the Ethereum layer 1 network, that has to be stored by the people running full nodes, the people validating the network. Obviously, if you want to be a validator on the network, you have to run a full node. So if the chain just gets too bloated and too big, because you're just storing everything, well, then it becomes more and more expensive to run a full node. Less people do it, and then it centralizes things, right? It very much centralizes things, and that's why we're against monolithic blockchains in the Ethereum ecosystem. So I've talked about this before, so I won't rant on about that too much, but cool to see another solution that I hadn't seen before pop up with regards to querying the chain for data. All right, so Terence from the Prylabs team has written down some consensus client implementers' thoughts on EIP-4844, which you guys know is proto-dank sharding. So these are just his thoughts around what would be required to be changed on the beacon chain and what things to be considered on the beacon chain. So on the consensus layer side of things, there's a great number of things here. I suggest giving this a read. It's pretty cool to get into the mind of a consensus layer core developer and see what they're thinking about, because these are all things that need to be considered. And as I've said before, 4844 proto-dank sharding, even though it's way less complex than full dank sharding, it's still got its own complexities. It's still got its own open questions, its own things that need to be smoothed out, need to be worked out before we can actually implement it into the network. That's why I've said previously that we may get a standalone fork for just withdrawals instead of for beacon chain withdrawals instead of beacon chain withdrawals and 4844. It just depends on how fast we can get 4844 to a point that the execution layer and consensus layer core developers are happy with. And we're obviously not at that point yet, but they're working on it. I mean, as I've said multiple times now, I thought they were going to take a break, the core devs, but they're not. They're just working on this stuff, which is awesome to see. But also, I hope they're like at least taking a bit of a break from time to time to make sure they're recharged and make sure they're not just kind of overworking themselves and burning themselves out. But I'll link this in the YouTube description. You can go check it out. All right, so I mentioned this thread before from Bert Miller talking about Flashbots MEV Boost, Flashbots' currently centralized infrastructure and competition. This is a great thread. I really, really highly recommend giving it a read, especially given everything that's been happening over the last few months around Flashbots, MEV Boost, the OFAC sanctions, censoring, all that sorts of stuff there. Bert doesn't explicitly mention OFAC or Tornado Cash in his Twitter thread. I think that's for obvious reasons. The Flashbots' legal team probably said do not explicitly mention it, but I mean, you read between the lines, it's all there. So he basically puts this thread together saying that Flashbots was created to be a public good, as to steer the Ethereum MEV ecosystem towards a place that actually isn't parasitic to the network, all that sorts of stuff that I've spoken about in the past as well. And I mean, I still think they're doing that, right? And some people have actually asked me or come at me privately and said, hey, you should draw more attention to the fact that Flashbots' relayer censors the OFAC transactions. And I'm like, okay, well, I have drawn attention to it multiple times in the past, but there's kind of a delicate balance here. For me personally, I don't want to, for lack of a better term, shit all over the Flashbots team and then cause them to turn inward and we stop getting all the amazing stuff from them that we have been getting. I know what they're doing with their relayer is shitty, right? And I think, but the thing is that with the censoring, I think they actually made up for that by open sourcing the MEV Boost code very, very quickly after that happened. I don't think these guys at Flashbots, the guys and girls, the team at Flashbots, are malicious actors at all. I think they're good actors. I think they're in a very, very rock and a hard place right now because of the fact that they're US-based. OFAC sanctions are extremely serious and you don't want to be seen even hinting at breaking them. And as I've said in the past, I do believe they're over-complying, but for them, it's probably worth it to over-comply rather than risk massive fines, jail time, all this other stuff that could happen to them personally. So I do not expect anyone to be a martyr here when it comes to this sorts of stuff. But one thing I will say is that the criticism that they kind of get is definitely justified for this, and there has been a lot of open questions around should they even be running a relayer if they aren't able to offer a relayer that doesn't censor. I'm torn on this. In one hand, I understand the arguments for them shutting it down, but then I understand the arguments for them running it as well. There's good arguments on either side here. I think the best argument for them shutting it down is obviously that they can't offer a censorship-resistant relayer. So if they actually care about Ethereum, they should just shut it down and let the other ones get the market share. But then the argument for keeping it live is that the Flashbots relayer, from what I know, is the most mature, is the best relayer available today. It's the most stable, it's the most reliable, and we know, there's trust involved here, but we do know that the Flashbots team works in Ethereum's best interest on the technical side of things. Obviously, on the social side of things, where the team, as I just explained, with the sanctions and stuff like that, the criticism is definitely warranted. But as I said before, I don't think we should just be shitting all over them constantly and basically forcing them to turn inward, which means that we get less cool stuff out of them. I think that they're doing what they can, they're producing what they can, they're building what they can, and the fact that they open sourced it so the other relayers can come online is amazing. Now it's just up to the market to work it out. Now it's up to you, if you're running a validator, not to use the Flashbots relay. If you care about censorship resistance on Ethereum, if you care about Ethereum's credible neutrality, you would use a non-censoring relayer. And to be fair, it's not just Flashbots that is censoring here. There is some of the other relayers are censoring as well. Bloxrat has a censoring one, Block Native does, and Eden does. I think that Manifold is the only one that doesn't right now. But, you can't guarantee that won't always be the case. And obviously, we're working on all these other technical solutions that I've spoken about plenty of times in the past, but this is in the context of Flashbots as a team. I think it doesn't do any good constantly berating them about this. They're aware of this. It's not like we have to keep reminding them. What we should be doing is berating the people running the validators, whether they be people, institutions, companies, to not use that relayer. That's fair game to me, at least. I think that's fine. But on top of that as well, we should also be very conscious of the fact that the Flashbots relay isn't the only one that's censoring. So we should direct people towards the ones that are best for the network, so to speak. So yeah, just wanted to give some context around that. And one last thing I wanted to explain, actually, now that I remembered, is you're hearing me use all these terms and you're probably confused by them. So what I want to say is Flashbots is a company, right? They develop the MEV Boost software, which is a piece of software that is considered like a sidecar or an optional piece of software you can run alongside your beacon chain validator, right? Or validators. So Flashbots company, MEV Boost software, then the relays are also this kind of like software that's run that relays the transactions, relays the bundles, and the bundles are basically MEV transactions in the bundles, and then there's like a marketplace that sorts out which ones get included in blocks and stuff like that. And then there's other companies like Block Native, like Manifold, like Eden, like BlocksRoute that offer their own relays, but they use the MEV Boost software and marketplace as well, right? They just have a different relay that does not censor in some cases. In some cases, it still censors those OFAC transactions, right? So those are the delineations to be made there. So when you're hearing people talk about Flashbots, they're most likely talking about the company, MEV Boost software, the relays software as well, right? The MEV Boost, the software is the same across all the relays, just the relay implementations are different depending on if they're censoring or not, and I mean other things as well, right? There are other variables in that too. But that's the last thing on that one. Go give this thread a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so the block is out with some news today that Fidelity has revealed an Ethereum index fund with $5 million in initial sales so far in a new filing. So this filing is with the SEC. And as I said, it showed the fund has just over $5 million worth of sales already. Obviously, a really, really small number. $5 million isn't really anything to scoff at, but it's cool to see that these bigger institutions are still kind of getting more involved in crypto and launching, a new Ethereum index fund, which provides its clients exposures to ETH, of course, and they launched it on September 26th. I think I've mentioned this in the past. TradFi is going to keep launching these things. They're going to keep wrapping it up in different types of products. There's going to be staking products and other products out there. And then these institutions are going to take their own fee and everything, and it's going to be a nice little cash cow for them. But given it's a bear market, given that September's been probably the worst, one of the worst months of the bear market so far. I don't expect I don't expect it to be much more than the $5 million that's been quoted so far. But as the market heats back up again, there's obviously going to be more sales here. So you want to be launching these products in a bear market so that you're ready for when the bull market comes around. That's actually a pretty sound business, strategy, is launching things in a bear market, growing them, getting those initial customers in, making sure that the product has at least some sort of product market fit. And then when the bull market rolls around again, you reap all the benefits. And that's what happened to a lot of things within the crypto ecosystem during the last bull market. And I expect that to happen again in the next one. All right, so Lens Protocol has announced today that they've partnered with ENS to allow Lens data to be queried via ENS resolution. So Lens data such as display name, profile photo, cover image, and address can now be queried as ENS resource records using EIP-4644 off-chain resolution. The Lens Protocol core team is operating a resolver via star.lens.xyz. However, all code will be open source so that anyone can create their own off-chain resolver serving Lens data. Data stores like Lens need secure authoritative means of lookup, and there is no better partner in this space than ENS. Look out for some more Lens x ENS news soon. This is awesome to see. Two of my favorite non-financial products in the ecosystem kind of coming together to offer this really cool user experience to people. Lens Protocol came under fire for not integrating with ENS originally, but the reason is because ENS isn't live on the Polygon POS chain, and that's where Lens is right now. So I don't think it was because Lens created their own naming system because of that limitation there. But that doesn't mean they can't integrate with ENS. That doesn't mean they can't integrate ENS when ENS comes to the Polygon POS chain. And it's great to see that the teams are still working together, right? Like, it's not like they're hostile with each other or they're like, oh, no, screw you, you didn't support us. No, that's not how we do it in Ethereum. We work together. It's all open source anyway. It's all able to be worked on in an open way, and that's what's really amazing about this. And Lens Protocol, I've talked about a little bit on the refill, but not that much, but I've been keeping an eye on it. It seems to be gaining some pretty good traction, which is really cool to see. There are definitely signs of early adoption, but it's like very, very early still. It's definitely not anything that's going to replace Twitter anytime soon, but we may end up needing it more and more as time goes on because of the fact, Elon Musk has to buy Twitter now. I'm sure you guys saw the news today. He can't get out of his contract. I'm simultaneously excited and scared about that. Excited because Twitter has been kind of meh for a while. They haven't really done much. And maybe Elon Musk can give him a kick up the ass, but also scared that I don't think he's going to be able to do that because he has so much other stuff going on. The fact that he didn't actually want to buy the company in the end, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen to Twitter, right? And sometimes I think about this and I'm like, okay, well, I have a massive social graph on Twitter. What if they just screw it all up? Like, what happens then? What if everyone just leaves and goes somewhere else? I can't bring my Twitter profile with me, right? I can tweet and basically say, hey, come follow me on this, but it's not the same. So when you have something like a Lens protocol that's a decentralized social graph, you basically don't rely or aren't at the mercy of a front end. It's a decentralized protocol that you can take your data with you wherever you go to different front ends. It's the same concept within DeFi and other things on chain, but I think that's going to be very, very powerful for social graphs, for digital identity, especially in the age where these Web 2 companies just get more and more centralized, more and more, I guess, like they censor things more and more, and they're pretty aimless as well. Like, as I said, Twitter, the front end hasn't really innovated at all in a long time. I mean, they've done bits and pieces here and there, like NFT integrations. They're doing an edit button, but I mean, an edit button, come on, like that was due ages ago. Is that supposed to be a huge innovation? No, I mean, and it's not just Twitter, it's a lot of these Web 2 social media platforms, and they're also not great in terms of the algorithms too. The algorithms are completely opaque. We have no idea how they're serving us things. I mean, I haven't noticed it so much on Twitter, but on YouTube, the algorithm is just whack on there. It's suggesting me shit that I have absolutely no interest in. I don't know why it's suggesting it to me, and I say I'm not interested in it, and it keeps suggesting it to me. So obviously, I have no insight into that at all. No idea why they're suggesting that to me, and I hate that because it's like, are they trying to force a particular thing on me? Are they trying to force a particular view on me as part of some internal trial that they're doing? I don't know how many of you are aware of this, but Facebook has actually done many trials of their algorithm and forcibly suggested content to people to see how it affected their mood, see how it affected their behavior on Facebook. And it was really, really bad at one point. I think they did a study where they showed people just bad news exclusively in their news feed, and they wanted to see if they could see if people's mood changed materially because of that. And it did. Of course it fucking did. If you get exposed to bad news all the time, then you're going to start feeling really shit. And that's a major problem with the internet today, is that we're all so connected and these algorithms just control our mood. So with decentralized protocols, we can choose these algorithms. We can choose which ones we want to use, which ones we don't want to use. And I think it's, over the longer term, hopefully going to be a better solution than what we have today, because today we just have this completely opaque system where we're at the mercy of these massive centralized companies that monitor everything we do, sell our data to the highest bidder, manipulate us via algorithms. Something's got to give eventually. And I think that Lens protocol is just one of those things that can help us get to a more decentralized social future. All right, so Horizon today announced a $40 million funding round in a Series A funding round, I should say. Now, disclosure, I participated in this funding round, as you probably would have assumed by now. I know I say that a lot about a lot of things, but I like disclosing these things. For those of you who don't know who Horizon is, well, they're the parent company behind a few different things. Skyweaver, which is a trading card game using NFTs, obviously, and things like that. Sequence, which is a smart wallet and a developer platform. And Nifty Swap, which is a marketplace for swapping SFTs or semi-fungible tokens. So they're building a bunch of different things here. And this $40 million round had participation from a bunch of different investors that you can see listed here, as well as a bunch of different angels. So I personally chose to invest in them because I think what they're doing is building not only, obviously a game, but they're building this game and they're probably seeing at some point, hey, we need to build tools to attract more builders to the platform, to attract more developers, to attract more users. So they went and built Sequence, which I don't know how many of you have used Sequence, but it's a pretty cool little developer platform and smart wallet that they've been working on for quite a while here. And then, obviously, as I said, they're also building Nifty Swap, which is for a marketplace for SFTs. So they're building things like on top of things that they've already built, so to speak. So they're obviously identifying problems and being like, okay, well, no one's done a solution for this yet. We're going to be the solution here. And I saw kind of the metrics, the statistics around this, and I was like, wow, okay, this is growing. This is actually being used. These are things that people are really interested in interacting with. I'd love to kind of back these guys when obviously the opportunity came up here. And you can check out the Sequence website for more information about what that does. Obviously, the Skyweaver game is self-explanatory. It's an NFT trading card game like Gods Unchained, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard of before. But you can check out Sequence and check out all the information on their website here, here, which I'll link in the YouTube description below. But yeah, congrats to them on this massive Series A funding round. Really great to see more of these legit teams building really cool stuff get funded, and obviously I'm a proud angel investor in them. All right, so Uniswap put out this tweet today saying that Uniswap V3 on Arbitrum has just hit an all-time high of 78.7% market share. Now, it's been 1 year since V3 has been live on Arbitrum here, and you can see that Uniswap V3 is just absolutely dominating. I mean, it wasn't at the start, right? But it is now. It's just killing everything else. And I've explained before that I think this is in large part due to just brand awareness and marketing generally. Everyone trusts Uniswap instead of other things out there, and obviously it's a bear market as well, so people are probably less inclined to try new things, new AMMs, things like that. But if I actually I had this before. Had this up before, but if I actually load uniswap.info, hopefully this works for me. It's a site that tracks the different metrics of Uniswap across different chains here. This is Ethereum layer 1. We don't really care about that right now. Let's look at the Polygon POS chain. So 24-hour volume on the Polygon POS chain is about what? It can range from, it's about 100, 150 million, depending on the day, obviously. So it can range from anywhere from 50 to 150 million, which during the bear market as well, which is obviously some great growth there. Optimism, you've got 24 hours, you got 50 to 100 million. I mean, it varies wildly here, but anywhere between 30 and 90 million or so. And then Arbitrum, you can see here as well, if I'm going to bring up the 24-hour stats here, it's actually gone up a lot recently, but it's just kind of between, I guess, 50 and 100 million depending on the day. And before that, it was more in line, I guess, with Optimism. But Arbitrum's had a big September, that was for sure. Now, we can look at some other chains here, actually. There's one other chain here, Challo, which is layer 1, that I always thought was kind of like completely pointless. I didn't really get the point of it. I was looking at this before. The total monthly volume they had, monthly, not daily, for September was $2.29 million. Like, basically nothing. It's a rounding error. So I don't even know why they're live there. But if you compare this to Ethereum Layer 1, in terms of daily volume, Ethereum Layer 1, I don't know if this is Ethereum Layer 1 daily volume here. I think this is wrong, these stats on Ethereum Layer 1. It's showing like 20, 30 million. No, that's definitely wrong. I think Ethereum Layer 1 daily volume is more than that, but I don't have it handy right now. But still, cool to see it growing, obviously. As I said, Arbitrum had a big September, and Uniswap had a big September on Arbitrum as well, and the market share has obviously gone up because of that. But it's been trending up since June here, so it's not like it's a recent thing, but still, cool to see Uniswap dominating for Uniswap's sake, but also I do like to see competition when it comes to these things, but Uniswap's brand awareness and dominance is just proving to be too much, I think. All right, so Zapper announced today that you can now explore NFTs on Optimism using the Zapper platform. So if you're looking to explore the Optimism ecosystem, you can check out this thread from Zapper to give a bit of a highlight here, but yeah, you can basically look at all your NFTs on the Optimism chain via your Zapper dashboard, which you can just go do if you go to Zapper's website. I'm sure you've probably already seen this if you are really into your NFTs on Optimism, so great to see this supported here. All right, so DeFiSaver, I missed this the other day, but they're excited to introduce their latest and most complete integration yet, which is Compound V3. So you can go to app.defisaver.com/compound to get dedicated dashboard, automation support, notifications, loan shifting, and a recipe creator. So I've spoken about DeFiSaver a bunch of times on the Refuel before, but these guys are great. This platform is really great. It supports a bunch of different things within DeFi, and now they're supporting Compound V3, which is great to see. And I'm sure some of you have used this, especially during the bull market when maybe you were taking on some leverage. DeFiSaver is pretty famous for allowing you to essentially set up these kind of insurance policy, not a literal insurance policy, but like a automated backstop, so that if your liquidation price gets near, it automatically tops up your collateral or pays back your debt or things like that. But they've also got a bunch of other integrations that you should check out as well. They're basically trying to do DeFi management, but in like a more advanced way than what you would get from the native front ends. So definitely go check them out and check out this Compound integration. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, last up here, we have a new dashboard from DeFiLlama, which has been soft launched, which is funding rounds in crypto. So this dashboard will show you information around funding rounds within the crypto ecosystem, who the lead investor was, what sector they're a part of, the round details, and obviously a source as well. So you can see that Horizon is listed here, of course, as I spoke about before, but there's a bunch of others as well, and you can keep scrolling down, and it just goes further and further back. Obviously, this won't have everything yet. This is a soft launch of this, but I'm sure they'll be adding more and more as time goes on. So if you're interested in seeing all the recent fundraisers over the last couple of years, actually, well, the ones that they're currently got listed here, I'll link this in the YouTube description below for you to check out. But on that note, that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.